Good to work with you.
Motion for unanimous consent on all agenda items. Sorry.
Okay, I call the smart board meeting to order. Madam the Clerk, roll call, please.
Maybe at the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, I'm sorry. I started this many years ago. Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we go to roll call, please.
Chairman Abdul Haddis,
Present.
Vice Chairperson, Mr. John Paul Rea,
Here.
Ms. Hillary Chambers. Here. Ms. Sheila Cote. Here. Dr. Curtis Ivory.
Here.
Mr. Royce Manico is participating as a non-voting member from Florida.
You.
Mr. Britt Razagat.
Here. Thank you. Item 4, adoption of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carry. Certification of public notice.
SMART will hold the January 25th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting at 2 p.m. in the board building, located at 535 Griswold Street, Suite 600, Detroit, Michigan 48226. This meeting is open to the public.
Thank you. Item 6, item 6A, board meeting minute for December 7, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 6B, executive session, meeting minute for December 7, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 7, public participation. Anybody from the public like to make a comment? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So,
Please state your name.
Brother Cunningham, I go to the SMART meetings sometimes, DDOT all of them, city council and the mayor's meetings, and I was been advocating for higher wages and for the buses to be on time. So as a call to action, I get donations and people gave me like 500 gloves and hand warmers, and I've been giving them out at SMART stops and DDOT stops. Namely, a big donation from Coleman Young, the councilman. That's who provided the majority of that 500. And so it's like a little kit. I give them some people at the bus stops. And sometimes I have the cheap portable chargers from Dollar Tree, gloves, hand warmers, because it doesn't seem like the powers that be even care that the buses are not on time, and SMART does not have a contract yet for the drivers, and they're in desperate need of drivers. I don't know. I just think it should be a sense of urgency, a little bit more of a sense of urgency, so there won't be any ghost buses or buses that just don't turn on time. I've been an advocate for a longer period of time than I've been a taxi cab driver, and I still get the same feedback about my bus was late. That's why they got in the cab. You know, I don't know how many times y'all take the bus in a week or in a month. But each and every one of you board should be on the buses, not just periodically, but on the buses at least once a week. And don't announce your arrival. And maybe even chat with the folks that are on the coaches, what's going on.
Thank you.
Is that my minutes?
No.
Okay. Also, I think it should be, I haven't seen on the coaches advertising for drivers. I seen the video, but I'm talking about the signs above the seats, the advertising above the seats. I said that to DDOT as well, that it should be more of that. I don't know the proper term for it. And even use the enunciator to talk about driver jobs availability and what you have available. I think I said it all. I have a hotline number 313-444-9114, 313-444-9114, 313-444-9114. That number was made so you can remember it. And just show some love to people at the bus stops. Maybe a gift card, some coffee, some hot chocolate, hand warmers, bus tickets. Folks are getting ghost buses and they're not showing up on time. So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment from the public?
Well, good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Lucas Lasecki from Farmington Hills, Oakland County. And what Brother Cunningham said, giving out hand warmers, hot chocolate to bus riders would be a good way to show your love for them and your appreciation for the fares that fund this system. Another good way to show your appreciation would be to solve the no-show bus crisis, to raise the wages for the operators and get the contract, which has been expired for over a year now, over 1 year without a contract, get that settled. Show your love for the drivers, show your love for the riders. I don't know how many times I need to say it. It seems like I'm screaming into the void because we have seen little to no action that's been apparent. I know there have been bargaining sessions, but after 4 days of bargaining sessions and a year prior, you still got nothing. That's really worrisome, to say the least. The effects have been worrisome too. In this new run pick, the reliability has been just as shaky as before, and I think the biggest loser has been the Gratiot Fast. There have been many days where less than half of the buses have been tracking and at least a third have been canceled. That is at best a 66% pullout rate for one of the most traveled routes in the SMART network, one of the flagship routes of your network. Gratiot Fast is key. It provides a lot of connections. It gets people from one of the most densely populated suburbs to the city, and you're leaving them in the cold, in cold that is cold enough to get frostbite 30 minutes waiting for a canceled bus. It is truly unacceptable. It's dangerous. Your inactivity has become a health hazard for people because of this cold. I don't know. We've been fighting this fight for a year. What are you doing? What is taking so long? If there's any way we can help you, tell us. But at the moment, we've heard nothing. We've seen nothing. All we've heard is strike-throughs on Transit app, canceled buses, and lost hours waiting for the next one. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public like to comment?
Hi, my name is Ellen Nikitin. I am from Livingston County, Michigan. So I guess I'll say the same thing these people have been saying, the same thing I've been saying for a while. You know, it kind of feels like we're, you know, rather than talking to a boardroom of people, sometimes I wonder if we're not really talking to a boardroom of people, but we're maybe instead talking to a brick wall, because, you know, buses are still being canceled. I've spent, you know, a few weeks ago, I spent about 3 hours waiting on a 462. Did eventually show up, but it took way too long to get out of here. Yeah, this is a crisis, and it's been that way for way too long. And you need to raise the bus driver pay. I don't know. I don't know how many different ways, how many different people can come up here, how many different months we can show up here and repeat the same thing over and over and over again. We want something to be done about this problem, please. I beg you. We need to fix this no-show crisis like yesterday.
Thank you, Ella.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public? Robert,
As soon as I came up to the podium, the chair was already calling my name. It feels appreciated. Good afternoon, members of the board, staff, and members of the public. My name is Robert Plowski. I'm the vice chair for the Regional Transit Authority Systems Advisory Committee, and I'm from Southgate, Wayne County. First off, I'd like to wish the staff and the board a happy new year, going forward into many different projects that we're going to be expanding on, especially with the Smart Mobility Program, expanding on service to get more public input for the service. But I also want to echo not just my advocates and friends over here that have voiced their concerns about service. First off, I think Wayne County in all of the terminals has had the best pullout rates, but that's just what I've seen. People could have a difference of opinion, but for my sake of it, I've seen a lot of great service on 125 lately. Been using more of the service like before back in October to get around my city instead of using my car. But most of all, Oakland County is, I think, one of the worst for pullout rates. And I know most of the folks behind me can agree with me on that, especially with the 462 waiting 3 hours apiece for it. So I actually, I decided to go to Great Lakes Crossing one of the days when I had off during my 2 weeks. And didn't want to drive up 75. 75 is just not worth it half the time because of all the traffic, construction. Decided to park my car at my garage that I use frequently and take the 462 up. Save a little money, save a little gas. I think it was one of the worst experiences I've ever had. I standed out, it was a weekend. I standed 2 hours waiting for it. And then after coming back, it was worse, about an hour and a half, leaving Great Lakes Crossing to come back to Detroit to get my car. I think Oakland County really needs to see more advancement in terms of their people. And what I mean by that, drivers, because I've heard a lot of rumors over the years that Wayne County has the most overtime and they don't have a lot of service and not a lot of routes, which leaves them to have a lot of opportunity. But Oakland, there's so many drivers that go to Oakland and Macomb because they know they get as many hours as they can. But this is coming from drivers I've talked to in the Wayne terminal, and they've transferred from Wayne to Oakland, and a lot of transferred from Oakland to Wayne. I think there's a miscommunication there, and we really need to fix the gap. If we're going to really increase wages, we need to make it competitive in all terminals. We need to make it to where smart service is going to be the way to go for not just the public, but for people looking for a job. There's a lot of great opportunities this year, and I'm so excited to see a lot of the expansions in Oakland County, the expansions on public engagement, but also the Smart Sounding Board. And I'd like to thank Bernard and his team for hosting those. One suggestion I want to make is I think maybe kick it up a little bit more in terms of public comment time, because I think the time that's given, it's a little bit small. Like I give it at least 5 minutes, 3 minutes. That's going to be beneficial because I know DDOT does that and we're able to get all the comments, questions, concerns, but they also respond to us. And I appreciate staff for also responding to our questions when need be. But that just needs to be increased. But also, I want to see SMART having more people coming to the system. I want to see more ridership. I want to see more drivers. Echoing Brother Cunningham's comments, most of all, kind of doing more giveaways, giving back to the community, reaching out to riders to gain their trust. Because I feel like there's been a lot of riders that don't trust you, but I trust you. So I'll give you some credit there. I trust you guys, but I want to see more trust coming from other folks. But just echoing comments, there is some proving that needs to be done, but I'm here to root for you guys. What can we do to help? And that I think it's a good way to start off the new year. But let's try to get some plans together. Let's get a contract. Let's finalize it. Let's expand service. Let's grow SMART. SMART's got hope, and I got hope for you guys. Let's grow SMART in 2024. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else from the public like to make any comment?
I really need to stop writing these in the audience. Hello, my name is Stephen Hammondtree. I'm sure you all recognize me by now. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that jazz. But honestly, this is getting old. One of the other commenters mentioned that the Fast Gratiot has been really hard hit lately, and I just want to say I can completely echo that. I've tried to take multiple trips from my home near 10 and Gratiot downtown this month, and every single one has had a service disruption of some sort. I did not get to catch the fast Gratiot bus I wanted to catch. Multiple times I had to take the local Gratiot and the other Gratiot to get down here or back, and we didn't even see a fast go by. But you know what? It's just year 2 of fixed route drivers not having a contract anymore. That's what it's brought us. I'm tempted to start saving receipts when I need to replace trips with Lyft and bring those to the board so the board and the public can see just what it's costing the riders. On my way here today, even, I had to leave an hour early because the 2 buses that would have been here before 2 p.m. were both not showing up on the tracker. So I had to be here before 1, and I had to take my bike when I wasn't planning to have my bike for a 10-hour day. Well, okay, 8-hour day. And now I have to keep track of it, risk losing it, having it stolen, or not being able to get on a bus because maybe the bike rack has no room for it. Or maybe the driver thinks that particular kind of bike shouldn't be on the bus and they don't want to take me with it. It's infuriating. And I even ran into a rider on the fast Gratiot bus I did take who needs to get to the airport. And I decided with the ample extra time I had, maybe I'd wait with him, make sure he gets the right bus. The right bus didn't show up. He ended up getting an Uber himself. I told the RTA, I don't think their new express bus needs to exist because the 261 exists. But the 261 needs to exist for that to hold true. That's all I have for you for today, but I want to see a contract next month. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment? See none. We have any email?
Yes, Chairman Haddis, we have 3, but due to they're very lengthy, so very briefly, there's Amanda Johnson from Southfield, Michigan, Shaquanda Smith from Ferndale, Michigan, and John MacArthur from Southfield, Michigan, and they are voicing their concerns about higher wages and union negotiations. And that is all, Chairman.
Thank you. Nobody on Zoom or phone? No, thank
Chairman
you.
Haddis.
Now we close the public comment and move to the chairperson. I really hope this year would be a successful year for the whole organization and employee. And we heard you loud and clear. Those concerns been listened to by the chairman of this or CEO of this organization and the board. And I assure you, we always working to make it better. We're not perfect, but we trying to get there. Is the system 100% proof? No, not yet, but we're working on it. And thank you for your patience and your support. Next item, it's the general manager report. Mr. Farrell.
Okay, I'm gonna take an exception from what's printed in the program as it relates to a year in review, and we'll talk about that next month. But there are a couple of things that I want to make the board aware of, and it is all related to public comment today.
Mm-hmm.
I just spent the last 2 days in Washington, D.C., and one of the things that I marvel at is in all of my years of visiting D.C. and making Hill visits, what used to take me a day in most places takes me 2 days here because of the size of the congressional delegation. So with that being said, I could read you the list of everybody's office that we went to, but let's just say that we talked to every member of the congressional delegation that represents the SMART area except for one office. And that's because we just didn't have enough time. We talked with both senators' office and aside from the fact that there are opportunities for no emission and low emission opportunities for vehicles coming forward very soon, as well as facility improvements to be able to do no emission and low emission fueling, hydrogen, and that sort of thing. we spent quite a bit of time asking our delegation, as well as the FTA the FTA administrator, as well as the Deputy Secretary of Transportation Policy, who we met with yesterday morning, to weigh in on two things that are particularly critical in helping us, not just us, but the industry, in terms of recruiting bus operators. One of them being the current policy for pre-employment testing. That policy was put in place in the 1980s when I drove a bus. There was no state that had legalized marijuana, and there are several states in the United States, including this one, that does. That is a barrier for us to be able to recruit that is absolute and real. The current testing methodology has about a 60-day look back. It is a urine test. And so if you got high 60 days ago and you haven't done marijuana since then, and you take a test for us, you will fail. Secondly, there are people who choose to use marijuana recreationally, just like they choose to drink and what have you, who do not want to give that up in order to be able to pass our testing. That's real. Those are issues that no one in this room can control, but it is a barrier in terms of recruitment, and no amount of money that we pay is going to change that. So I want to be clear that everybody understands this is a nationwide problem. I also want to make sure that the public understands this is not an excuse. These are things that we are trying to advocate in order to be able to change. In 2019, the federal government started taking steps to change from this urine test to an oral test. 2019, it is 2024, and they are still trying to resolve this issue. I can show you the documents. So we have asked our delegation to weigh in on this to help get this change done. This has nothing to do with post-accident testing. This has nothing to do with random testing or anything like that. This is pre-employment testing, taking into the reality what people have choices to do. The other thing that people have to understand is the CDL testing process. The CDL testing procedure that was put in place in the 1990s. It is governed by motor carrier regulations, and it was put in place specifically to stop truck drivers from having driver's license in multiple states. So the CDL process now ties your driver's license to your social security number. Now, why is that significant? There are three components of a CDL test. Three: general knowledge, passenger, and air brakes. Why do I mention air brakes? That test is for truck drivers, not bus operators. We don't effectively have a way to even train for that. So just to show you the progression that has taken place over time, used to be transit systems like ours would require you to pass the written portion before they would hire you. Taking into consideration the difficulty to get people, we changed it and said, we will train you and give you a week in order to be able to do that. That didn't work. So now when we hire you, we keep you until you can pass it. So we may have people here who are working here 4 weeks that we train to be able to pass that test. And the air brake portion is the one that is the most difficult. Now, here's the problem. Then they quit and go to work for a truck company. This is not a unique situation just to SMART. Now, those are things from a policy point of view, we're asking the people in Washington, D.C. who govern all of this to weigh in. Now, I'll take this even a step further. We have 4 meetings with the ATU scheduled. All of our contracts have a provision in them for a Me Too. If you look at the 2 contracts that we have signed with two other unions, they have 32% increases over 2 years. It's not about money. So let us not be confused about that. The other thing that I want to make clear, we are trying to make changes in all of our agreements that make us more attractive as an employer, because we have rules that, quite frankly, were put in place when I started that do not make it an attractive job for people. Work condition, work hours, those kinds of things. So all of those things have to be negotiated with a union. And so that is what we are working towards doing. So I don't want anybody online or in this room to not recognize that we are not aware of what it takes to be able to put bus operators on the street. I will give you a direct quote that I said to every member of Congress that we met with yesterday. We cannot do our job without people, period. The employees at SMART will be the highest employees in the state doing this job once these contracts are done. But it's not just about money. It is about other things. We have incentives that we have offered, and in some instances add much as $5 per hour for doing basic things like coming to work, not having accidents, and customer service. So this, as I've stated in previous meetings, is a very complicated issue. And if it was as simple as that, we wouldn't be the only people who are doing it. So I want people to understand in this community what SMART is doing in terms of trying to take a leadership role, not only in this state, but in this country, to address the root cause of being able to attract bus operators, mechanics, and cleaners. Now, I'm happy to have this conversation afterwards with anybody in the public who wants to do it at any time. Because I assure you, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, I've been doing this job since before some of these people who are making comments were born. I know the changes that have happened in this industry and what changes people want in terms of jobs. When I started, I wanted a job that had health insurance and pension. That doesn't mean the same thing to people. You didn't have an Affordable Care Act or a gig economy that you have now, where hell, I can get insurance on my own and work 5 jobs and make more money than what I can do and take trips. So this is a very complicated issue. I'm sorry to be on the soapbox, but I really want the public to understand that we hear this. I have been here 2 years. We have been trying to hire bus operators for 2 years. The first meeting that I had here, there was a woman who works for the federal government who came in and said, we needed to do something. I made a commitment then that I continue to, that we are going to do this in order to be able to increase service. So my commitment is still there. And this organization's commitment is still there to do everything we can to attract and retain talent. So with that, I'll talk about the year in review next year. But again, we had a very successful meeting in DC. But again, the purpose for that meeting was to try to get some assistance on the federal level to help in this very, very critical area. So I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have at this point. And I do have one more thing, Mr. Chair, if you allow me.
Please.
There was an article that was in the paper, I guess it was today, about an accident involving one of our employees who unfortunately was killed on her way to work. And I want to assure this organization the steps that we took as an organization to make sure that we don't have a similar situation as what our counterparts across town have had. Tiffany and I actually happened to come upon the accident as it was actually real time. The first thing, and one of the things that we learned, is we needed to do a better job of making sure we had emergency contact information in the event somebody got hurt on the job. We went through every employee at SMART to make sure we had emergency contact information for everyone here. First thing. Second thing is we went through everyone's record to make sure that we didn't have a similar situation here where we had somebody involved in an accident of this type and we're still here. We don't have that situation. The other thing that we've done most recently is hired 3 people, 1 for each garage, to focus solely on safety. They have the responsibility of evaluating accidents and making determinations of preventability and so forth. So I want the public to be assured that we are doing everything that we can to make sure that our operators are prepared and can do so. Operators, mechanics, trainers, anybody who's operating a SMART vehicle can do so in a safe manner. And the last thing, I meet with every class of operators, both at graduation and when they start. I ask them to do 2 things. 1, don't quit. because the money is always going to be greater later. And the second thing, I tell them and remind them that the pedestrian always has the right of way.
Yep.
So again, I want the public to know, the board to know, and anybody else who's listening, the things that we're doing to make sure that the citizens that we carry and the citizens that are pedestrians or in other vehicles, that we're doing what we can to make sure that we are safe and that they are safe.
Any question?
Not
Hello.
so much a question, but a comment, and I know that I speak for all of my colleagues in terms of expressing our continued condolences to the family of Janice Bauer and all of the employees who,
No question.
you know, had her as a colleague, and from all accounts, she was very much a beloved employee. And you know, the article, I'm sure, brought back a lot of difficult feelings
Yes, it
for
did.
people in terms of the experience that this organization had to go through during that tragic period. So again, I just wanted to kind of express our continued condolences and thoughts for the employees on that.
Excellent.
Oh, and we've had a lot of intense conversations. So now for some fun. We have a new addition to the Smart family. You may notice that Ryan Byrne is not here. Ryan is on paternity leave because Ryan is a new father. Hey. So Camille Eloise Byrne came early, and I told Ryan, I say, babies have their own schedule, but to get used to it. Came early on January the 17th. And so this is Ryan's first time being a dad. And so, yes, it is awesome. So he's going to be out for the next couple of weeks while he is doing dad things.
That's sleeping.
So recuperating. Oh, he hasn't even got started yet. So we want to congratulate him and his wife, a girlfriend, his partner. You know, I don't in these days, I don't know what, but anyway, Camille's mother. On their arrival. So thank you.
Welcome aboard. Thank you. We item 10, the board briefing and HR hiring update.
Yes,
Tiana, report.
Tiana is actually not here today as she is in negotiations. So
Okay.
in keeping with Dwight's comments, Mr. Farrell's comments earlier. So I'll cover our hiring update for today. And I believe we have a presentation that goes along with that. We do not? Okay, well, then I'll just give it verbally if that's all right with you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
For this past month, we had on the fixed route side, as you know, we have 426 budgeted positions. For that, we have filled on the fixed route side 341 positions, leaving 85 positions still remaining open. On the paratransit side, we have 142 budgeted positions. For that, we have filled 95 of those positions, leaving 47 of those still open. We do know that our February numbers are going to look much differently in the positive, as we have next Monday beginning a class though that we had to split. We have 40 operators beginning with us on Monday. That is not included in the numbers that I just provided to you due to the cutoff date for submission of reports. So we have 20 fixed route operators coming on and 20 paratransit operators starting on Monday. We are splitting those two classes so that we have the fixed route operators in one class and the paratransit operators in the other, so we can accommodate given our classroom sizes. And we are working diligently to be able to create a space that can bring all of them together when we have the larger classes. So we are feeling positive about the recruiting efforts, and we want to definitely acknowledge the work that the HR team is doing to really put out the information and reach communities that we haven't historically reached before. Ms. Leapart and her team are working around the clock as they understand that this is our #1 priority.
Excellent. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
question for Tiffany? Seeing none, we move to item 10B, flex update, Danielle Whitehouse. Happy New Year.
There we go.
Hello.
Is it on now? Okay. Happy New Year,
Happy New
Mr.
Year
Chair,
to you.
members of the
Thank you.
board. I did want to go through and update the board on the most recent numbers as it relates to Flex. So as we begin, I wanted to showcase the ridership over the past few months. So the last time I provided this update was in October. So we're looking at the October, November, and December numbers. And we can see that while there's been a slight decline in part because of the holiday season, the numbers are still remaining pretty strong. We continue to be over 30,000 rides per month. So compared to the beginning of last year, right, over the entire 2023 span, we saw a growth of about 5,000 to 6,000 rides from start to finish. I wanted to then talk briefly about the cost per ride, because I know this is something that we talk a lot about how, what is the return on investment for this type of service, and proud to show that this is a number that has remained consistent for nearly the entire year. So we started out January, higher than we finished, but between March and December, we were at $20 an hour or $19 an hour every single month, and that's the cost for each ride. Any questions so far?
Do you know average
Okay.
distance?
Yeah, it's about 3.5 to 4 miles a trip. Obviously, the zones are going to vary because Hall Road has a much more larger geographical footprint than Troy or Pontiac. But overall, in each zone, we're looking between 3.5 and 4.
Can you provide the next briefings by zone?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And that I'm slated to do that in March.
Okay.
So we're going to be happy to present that. All right. Moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about response time. Okay.
One of the questions that I asked the board, would it be helpful for you all to have a visual of actually a map that would show where zones are? So that we're not necessarily talking in abstract.
Perfect.
So I think that Harmony, if we can get the GIS group to come up with some maps to be able to show the zones, and then we can show the ridership within the zones.
Yeah.
In the March timeframe.
We can do that, and we'll show each zone and some of the big POIs in each zone to show. Yeah, we have a lot of that, but we'll add that in March. Absolutely. So as we kind of looked at response time throughout the year, we did see kind of, a hill as it went up. That was in part because we needed to bring more operators on. VIA needed to bring more operators on, but proud to, to announce that as we went through the holiday season, we did see the leveling off to where we would like to see this number at. So that remains consistent as well. Lastly, the last thing I wanted to touch on was utilization. So this is looking at number of rides per hour. And our goal for this was 2. That has been 2 for the entirety of the pilot. And we have been very good at maintaining an average that is above that. And this brings into account every zone. Again, and I think Dwight will want to say this, we will show this per zone. Through most of 2023, we saw the lowest utilization in Troy. But as we came to the end of 2023, we saw the Troy zone at its highest utilization through the entire 3 years of this pilot. And so,
I mean, how do you define that? I'm sorry.
so number of hours that the vehicles are on the road and number of passengers in that given span. And so we do calculate that per zone on a monthly basis. And in March, we will show that as a breakout for every zone.
So is that 2.4 people per hour?
Yes, it is.
Danny, I can't tell who the difference between Pontiac and Farmington Hills, which one, I can't tell the color, which.
So Pontiac is going to be the top line. It's going to be the very top one that spans over 3 riders per hour. Farmington Hills is going to be the blue line further down. Yeah, and you can see Troy, that we saw an upward growth of that at the end. So. So part of that was, we'll talk a little bit about it later, but a lot of that was becoming more diligent about assigning vehicles and keeping them in zones as we went through this year. So any questions? Brett?
What impacts the cost per ride? One of the first slides you.
So we have an hourly rate that we pay for this service, and that's going to be dictated on the number of rides we're providing within that agreed upon rate per hour.
So as the people per hour go up, the cost per ride goes down. Okay.
Right. Yes.
Kind of like Paragon.
Yeah. Yeah, when we saw the utilization at 2.4 for the majority of the year, that's why we're seeing the consistency of the numbers with this.
Can I ask on this? I mean, is Uber or Lyft the competitor to SmartFlex?
Not really. From a cost efficiency standpoint, it is not.
Those same rides on Uber and Lyft would be much more
Yes.
expensive.
You can do an apples to apple comparison, like where someone starts and what that cost would be
Yes.
in terms of.
And we'd have to also look at peak
Yeah.
pricing for
Yeah,
Uber
yeah,
and
yeah,
Lyft.
Yeah, so what
Yeah.
she's asking, we'll try to see what we can do because, you
Right.
know, their information is proprietary, but we can
Yeah.
try to find out an average of if this trip is 3 miles, how much it would cost an Uber or Lyft versus how much it would cost.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, we can work on that for you, Hilly. Absolutely.
Okay, I would be interested in that.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't know if this was part of the year-end report, but it feels like we always get the flex update. Would it be possible to get a similar fixed route update?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. We are planning to provide regular updates on ridership by route in 2024.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
So
Okay.
that you'll be able to have the exact same information that you have on Flex, not only for that, but for paratransit as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
So the idea is that you'll have a full view of what ridership is. And you will also want to be able to track as our staffing increases. There should be a direct correlation between staffing increasing and in terms of fewer missed trips and those kinds of things. I want to make sure that we're clear on something. Part of the incentive that we put in contracts, the existing ones as well as the ones that we have yet to do, have an attendance component in them. So we're incentivizing people to come to work. You
Mhm.
actually get an extra, was it $1 an hour?
It depends. It's about 45 cents. And the Teamsters is in effect. We've already seen shifts in behavior from that since the first of the year when it went truly live.
And so the other thing too, as it relates to all of this that you will be able to track is one of the challenges that happens in every transit system is when you're short on operators, you tend to use people more.
Hmm.
People get tired. So this is one of those things where, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of ways by not doing it. So again, going back to your question, when we go forward, we want to be able to show the board and the public what ridership is and how filling positions plays directly into that.
Oops, I'm sorry, Dan, one more. And this reflects our change in the fee structure and the number of free rides and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, it does. That went into effect in December. So we'll see when we do the next presentation, we'll be able to show that of number of, rides and how they can be paid as well.
Because we reduced the number of free rides.
Yeah,
that you guys
we did.
to
Yes.
Do that.
Yep.
And one of the other things that I think, Dan, we need to make sure, because of the agreement we have in Dearborn,
Mhm.
that's a separate agreement than everybody else's because the city of Dearborn pays for part of
Yes.
that. To be able to see what that impact has been in terms of ridership as well.
Right. Yep.
Of course, now.
Dr. Ryder.
In terms of ridership, do we have and this may be a question I should have answered you already, relative to seniors, do we do a reduced cost and or for students?
We have, Tiffany, you want to answer that?
I
But-
apologize. I was
We
so distracted.
have different fare structures for seniors. We have different fare structure, paratransit ridership.
Yep.
We have different fare for
Youth.
Youth,
flex.
it's
and-
youth, it's no
Yep.
student. specific.
And so all of that typically gets aggregated into an average fare. But we certainly can look at breaking down,
Student fare.
the student fare and the senior fare and et cetera. If that's, no, I mean, it's not that the data's not there, we can certainly provide it.
Any
So
other?
the updates on fixed route are planned for March. When is it?
March?
Oh, yeah.
March.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah. Paratransit and flex again in March as well. Yeah.
Not-
Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse.
Thank you.
Busted.
This time we move to the financial report. Mitchell Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
You gotta speak directly into the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. You have, okay, you go to page slide 2, please.
I have some idea.
Thank you. Our federal sources, there is a timing difference between grant budgeting and revenue recognition for eligible expenses. Finance expects to draw funds that will equal budgeted numbers throughout the year. Our state sources are low due to lower than budgeted eligible expenses for reimbursements. Headcount lower, our budget reflected all union groups ratifying new contracts. And our other income interest is approximately 5.2%. Continue on to slide 3, please. Our wages are down because we budgeted for all unions to be ratified and all positions filled, and all budgeted positions are not filled. Our pension funding, this is the money SMART pays into the plan, employer contributions to pension funding plan. Past years, SMART has put extra money into the trust. In Q1, SMART utilized reserves for the pension instead of making cash payment. However, there is another item on the agenda during today's meeting that will discuss this issue. Our net unfunded obligation, there is a timing difference here. We budgeted accelerated payments to the trust, not just 1/12 per month. Continue to slide 4, please. Our vehicle liability continues to be higher because of our experience on claim settlements. Our diesel fuel, SMART hasn't fully budgeted miles, so the expense isn't lower. Through September, our average dollar per gallon is $3.06. We budgeted $3.60. And you continue to page slide 9. Slide 9, please. Thank you. Our balance sheet remains stable. The net position remains about where we want. Liquidity remains good. Current assets are higher than current liabilities. We're able to meet our obligations. Our unrestricted remains in good position. That's slide 10. Any questions?
Any question?
Motion received by Mr. Chair.
Motion been made, supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, now we move to item 12, a new business, resolution of membership for the ACES. Tiffany got.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are looking and actually we were tapped to participate in a newly created public sector-led multi-stakeholder advisory committee. And that committee is entitled the Automated Connected Electric Shared Mobility Coalition. We are invited to participate for this first year of its inaugural year. The cost for membership is not to exceed $25,000. That is the cost of membership. The goal is what we are doing is appointing Dwight Sparrow as SMART's representative and myself as the alternate for this Mobility Coalition board. This is a very innovative group. They have representation from I believe it's 9 other transit properties throughout the nation, as well as many advocacy groups for automated connected vehicles as well. And this will be the policy setting group And so to be invited to participate in this really speaks highly to Dwight's reputation in the industry and the work that we're being recognized for at SMART and moving forward and being progressive in our thinking. So we are asking today for consideration for you to move and adopt our membership in the ACES Coalition.
Support. Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Item 12B, appointment of the Budget Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. SMART is in the process of preparing the fiscal year 24-25 operating and capital budget. To comply with regulatory requirements, SMART needs to formally adopt the fiscal 24-25 budget by May 31st, 2024. To support SMART's budgeting process, the board chair appoints 3 board members to the budget committee. The budget committee will meet in April to review the budget and make a resolution to take the proposed budget to the entire SMART board of directors. Motion to appoint budget members.
So
Mr. Chair, if I may make a motion. I would like to make a motion that myself from Macomb County, Ms. Chambers from Oakland County, and Dr. Ivory from Wayne County be the representatives for the budget committee.
Would you mind repeating the names for me,
Yeah,
please?
so Mr. Rhea from Macomb, Ms. Chambers from Oakland, and Dr. Ivory from Wayne, please.
Mr. Ray will be the chairperson for that committee.
Always a terrifying proposition.
Thank you.
First name.
Gotta find better people.
You the best, sir.
I love this board.
We need to vote on it or wait a second? Okay, motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Landslide victory. So next, okay, now we go to item 12C. Amendment to the fiscal year 2023-2024 general operation budget.
Danny.
Oh, so, okay, you.
Trying to help you
ahead
out.
of me, you're ready at the podium.
Ready to go, yes. Good afternoon again, everybody. I am here on behalf of SMART staff, asking the board to approve a budget amendment in the amount of $1,100,000. This would be a repurposing of funds from driver wages into the microtransit account. In January of 2023, the board approved SMART to increase contract amount in this amount, 1,100,000 to VIA for additional hours of service, as well as additional wave vehicles. This amendment would move that money from, as I mentioned, unused operating funds, wages, my apologies, over to the microtransit account. So with that, I will entertain any questions.
Any question? Not, motion be in order.
Motion approved, Mr. Chair.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item 12D, authorization to award contract for pension contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Definite.
Thank you so much. So for this, a fiscal year 2023-24 budget amendment is being proposed for an additional funding contributions expenditure for the pension and other post-employment benefits, OPEB. The Finance Department has reviewed the authority's financial position, and grant funding sources are determined that these are current assets that are available to pay down some legacy liabilities for the organization. And just wanted to talk through a couple of significant points of what this action means for the organization today. Addressing these legacy liabilities for both pension and OPEB plans for retirees, which are respectively 76.6 million and 18 million, according to the last valuation that was done last spring, is something that we have been looking to do for some time. It's something that organizations typically tend to be around 65 to 85% funded. We did close the OPEB in 2012. Our pension is currently open, and we're making efforts to close that as well, moving forward. To new members, and not to existing members, but only to new entrants. And the existing plan that we had for pay down, it involved a 17-year amortization. We would accelerate that with this action today. And we can drastically reduce our legacy liabilities to the tune of 100% of the OPEB being funded and 95% of the pension being funded with the action that we take today. So with that, I wanted to make sure that we understood the significance of this. The CFO, Ryan Byrne, Dwight Farrell, and I consulted with our actuary on several occasions, Gabriel Roeder Smith, GRS, to determine the amounts needed to be able to make this action possible. So we have great confidence in our ability to move forward with this, and we look forward to hearing any questions that you may have concerning this action.
Any question from the board?
I just have a question in terms of the money became available to do this because.
We are able to use relief funding to support our operating.
Okay.
And
that's what
yes.
I thought. I just want to make sure about that. Okay.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, one of the things we want to make sure with the wages that the increases that we were proposing, even though we're closing the two members, that's a significant amount of dollars that we'd have to take into consideration. And so this helps address that. And so we want to make sure that the raises that we were offering was something that were sustainable.
Absolutely.
And so my hat's off to Ryan and his finance team.
Absolutely.
And all of the consultants for helping us be able to do this, because to go from where we were to 95% funding on a pension plan and OPEB being fully funded, barring an absolute collapse in the market, puts us in a really good place. So instead of a 17-year pay down, it's a whole lot less. And so the other upside to it is that just means that the dollars that we otherwise would have been used to pay down these liabilities now become available to do other things.
If I might commend the team and the leadership team, that's a significant proposition. To get that done is special, and I want to commend you for that accomplishment.
It is accomplishment. I remember coming from local government. If you around 70% funded, you on the top of the world. When I see here 95%, I said, "Wow, good job, thank you."
Mr. Chair, make motion to approve the contribution as presented to the board.
So moved.
Motion been made and supported. Any question? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Chairman Hattis,
Yes,
Mr. Manico has asked to speak on behalf of the pension benefits, and he also has a question on alternative fuel studies. Could you unmute him, please? Thank you.
Mr. Monaco,
Can you hear me now?
loud and clear.
I had a great interest in the pension benefits and the healthcare. I know at the markets at the end of the year for 2023 were significantly up. NASDAQ was up about 43%. The Standard & Poor's were up about 23, almost 24%. Dow was up 12.5%. Bitcoin was up 150% for any of you that have Bitcoin. And Uber was up 144%. Now, in looking at our county portfolio, I asked the question about the Magnificent Seven. That's Microsoft, Apple, Alphabet, NVIDIA, Tesla, Meta, and Amazon, and they were up 75% from last year. So all of the other 443 companies in the Standard & Poor's 500 have gained about 12%. I was very curious, particularly with our investments in Monroe County, of how that impacted our healthcare pension program. And I asked them, the consultant is not yet, our money managers have not yet come up with a definite figure, but it looked like we would be up about 13.5% increase over 2022. Now, that was a significant increase, even though our market rate in the real estate was in the negative, about 5.3%. So as I view the market today, I noticed the S&P 500 have just soared to a fifth straight high, record high. And I wanted to ask Robert Byrne, but the new father, but I'll leave it to the administration, of how that's going to impact our future funding, as Tiffany put, I think about 95% there for full funding. What impact that might have on future budgets for us if this continues?
Well, Mr. Manical, I'd say pretty directly, I think that we'll be all upside if we continue to see the same trends. We know that GRS tries to give us a conservative valuation. We don't have the numbers yet for December. We do track this monthly, and
13.5 was really great news for us.